Okay, for this bird, what I do is I find a picture that has movement, which is something like this one. So you take vellum and you trace the bird out. Once you get it traced out, there's all kinds of reference material that tells you how far it is from the beak to the eye, or how long the tail is, and you increase the size in a printer until you get the size, which will give you the actual size. And then after you do that, you make a pattern out of just a hard paper, and you draw it onto, you trace it out on a piece of wood, a side view and a top view, and you cut it out, so then you end up with a square. Then you just start working it all down with your Dremel or your with a knife and stuff, and start carving the feathers in like this one here. Then you've got to figure out what kind of a perch you want. So for this one, I got a ponderosa pine cone, and I dissected it, and I numbered all the different petals and drew them out on a piece of basswood so it was thick enough to make petals like this.
So this is a fake petal.
Yeah. And this, you want to make it long enough so it looks like the petals are stacked inside the cone, like that. And then I take a...
How many petals does it take?
I think there's over 100 of them, or close to 100 in that one pine cone. And then I take a small drill, and I take stick pins and cut them. And insert them into the back end of this petal. And I drill a hole into the dowel that they're attached to, and epoxy them so that that pin gives it strength. Then I paint the bird, and I make the feet.
How do you get all of those little grooves on the bird?
Oh,
on each feather.
After you carve the feathers and everything in, I use a wood burner. And you can adjust the temperature. Plug it in. Adjust the temperature, turn it on, and then every one of those, you make the quill in the middle of the feather, and then every one of them is burnt like this. Hundreds of them.
Hundreds and hundreds.
One after another. And that makes all these little marks on the feathers. And then before you paint it, you gesso it, the whole bird white.
Like primer.
Yeah, it's like it's base that has a tooth, so all the paint will stick real good. And part of it I'll use an airbrush to put a base colored coat on it. And then the rest of it is all done with just paint brushes.
And how do you figure out what tint of paint a bird is, like the color of a bird?
Just lots of research and looking at the colored pictures of them.
And you mix it by eye, just guessing.
Yeah, there's books that kind of give you ideas of different ways different people paint them, but I like to kind of make my own. a little bit, change the colors.
Uh-huh.
And the feet, I make the feet for the bird. It's out of copper and that's silver brazed all together here. Like the one I made for Leanne. In one of these petals, you can't really see it, but there's a pin that goes right down through the center of that petal and up into the bottom of the bird. So it looks like the bird's actually hanging on there, but in the very center there's a pin holding it. So it can't fall off or move. It's pretty solid.
Sure.
But the feet are all, these I made ahead of time because I had to put them on the branch. The eyes, I buy the eyes they're clear like this, and then I just paint them what color they need to be so that they still have a black pupil, but then the eye is the color that the eye is supposed to be.
Hmm. So, like with Craig's, with the pine cone, you created the whole pine cone, and on this one, you're creating this entire stick that looks like a blossoming.
It's a pussy willow. So this is actually a heavy piece of copper wire, solid wire. These are brazed on, and then there's a little nub on each one of these. It's brazed on, and then this is carved from wood, and it's epoxied to each one of them little stubs, and then these are made separately and epoxied into the.
So pretty much on every bird, there's an element of some metalwork for strength, and then different types of woods to make the actual bird and base.
Yeah, this is basswood. This is mahogany. This is all copper brazed, and actually even like the little pin that's in this copper that's under here, I drilled a hole, and that was put in a hole and then attached to the. These are actually brazed here, and these pins are soldered in.
Okay.
And then you make a big mess.